Hey guys, welcome back to another video of my channel. I am going to start a brand new Pokemon series in which you will see what will happen if Ash evolved his Pokemon. Many of Ash Pokemon has been in the primitive stage of their evolutions, like our most favorite Pokemon of all time in Ash's team, Pikachu. So you have seen him, but he is a monster, so he is a special case. But many of Ash's Pokemon are right now, even after becoming champion, are in his initial state, like particularly Bulbasaur. Charmander evolved into Koilava, but there are still many Pokemon. So how and what changes will happen in this what if? So let's begin without any more delay. And if you are new on the channel, so don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell icon. And if you have seen the series on my main channel, so why not watch it a second time?
Ash Ketchum, a teenage Pokémon trainer who has traveled through the Kanto, Johto, Hoenn, Sinnoh and Unova region, has been living in his hometown Pallet Town in the Kanto region for a year now. Since his adventures in the Unova region, he caught several Pokémon in that region during his travels. Ash had decided to take a break from journeying for a while to spend more time with his family back in Kanto, and for the past year it had been nice. Usually Ash would simply learn of a new region in the world and decide to travel there, but not this time. Don't ask me why. While Ash enjoyed spending time with his family in Pallet Town, he has other relatives besides his mother there. He missed challenging gym leaders and going against the Pokemon leagues, even though he never won, but he forgot he could always try again another year, but for some reason Ash has never bothered to have done this. One day Ash was at Professor Oak's lab watching his herd of over 30 Tauros, which he caught in his first journey in the Kanto region in the Safari Zone, running through the fields of the research lab, when suddenly it hit him in his mind of what he could next. Ash then realizes what he can do, and that is to try it again. Ash then goes over to his house, tells Delia all about what he plans to do, which to once again travel through the Kanto region, collect gym badges and challenge the Indigo Plateau, and hopefully this time win it. At least you were here longer than you usually are when you leave, dear, Delia says after hearing that. You'll have a better chance of winning the Indigo Plateau since your Pokemon have gotten stronger, Professor Oak says, also hearing this. He decided to bring his Unova region Pokédex with him, which had data on over 649 Pokémon from all 5 regions, along with several supplies he might need during his journey. And after saying goodbye to his mother, Ash and Pikachu were off. Ash and Pikachu soon got to the exit of Pallet Town, and just before they entered Viridian Forest, the two hear a rustling in the bushes and an Eevee pops out. Eevee, the evolution Pokemon, says, and Ash is amazed by this and pulls out his Pokédex. Eevee, the evolution Pokemon. Because its genetic makeup is irregular, it quickly changes its form due to a variety of causes. Whoa, that's awesome, Ash says, and pulls out a Pokeball and throws it, and his Gible is unleashed from his Pokeball. Gible, he exclaims. Gible use Dragon Pulse, Ash says, and Gible opens its mouth and a turquoise ball of energy appears in front of it. It then fires the ball at Eevee, which knocks the evolution Pokemon out in one hit. Now go Pokeball, Ash says, and throws an empty Pokeball at Eevee, which absorbs the evolution Pokemon and wobbles and blinks several times and then halts, and sparkles fly off, confirming its capture. Yeah, I caught an Eevee, Ash says, holding up the Pokeball. Pika Pie, Pikachu says, and the ball then teleports away right in Ash's hand. Oh yeah, teleports to Professor Oak's lab if I have more than 6 Pokemon on my team, Ash says, and Ash notices Team Rocket is following him due to seeing a shadow behind him in the shape of a Meowth, which is their balloon. Ash and Team Rocket have had this boring routine for the past 6 years, where they would continuously try and steal Pikachu, fail every time, and he was just sick of it. I know you're there, Team Rocket. I can see the balloon's shadow, Ash yells out, and just before they could do their motto, which got old years ago, Ash turned and so did Pikachu and Gible. Pikachu used Electro Ball on the balloon's carriage. Ash says, and Pikachu unleashes a ball of electricity at the carriage of the hot air balloon carrying the trio of Pokémon thieves that has been causing the two friends trouble for the last 6 years. The electro ball hits the carriage, causing the trio of thieves to fall down and hit the ground, but they quickly pick themselves up, looking very peeved. The long-haired Jessie spoke first. "Oh, you twerp, now you're gonna get it," she says, very angry, and opens her Pokeball, and in an instant her Yanmega is unleashed from her Pokeball. Yanmega use ancient power, she says, and the Ogre Darner Pokemon begins to generate a sphere of energy. Gible use Draco Meteor. Ash says the Land Shark Pokemon fires the attack at Yanmega before she could fire ancient power, making her faint, and Gible then stands and roars in victory. Then he begins to glow and grow, and Ash looks amazement as his Gible evolves. Finally the light stops and Gible has become a Gabite. Ash then pulls out his Pokédex. Gabite, the cave Pokemon, the evolved form of Gible. It loves sparkly things. It seeks treasures in caves and hoards the loot into its nest. Ash then unleashes his other Pokémon, which are Bayleaf, Totodile, Emboar and Quilava, and they all stare down on Team Rocket and they cover their heads, cowering in fear. Ash then takes out his phone and dials 911. Several moments later, Officer Jenny and at least 2 other cops arrives and cuffs the entire trio, places them under arrest. "Don't worry, they won't be bothering you anymore. With all they did, they'll be put away for life," Officer Jenny says, and after giving Jenny his statement leaves and with his Pikachu goes into Viridian Forest. Ash had just exited Viridian City and he along with Pikachu prepared to enter Viridian Forest, but before he did he briefly stopped at the entrance, and the both of them took a moment to remember coming to this forest over 6 years ago, where Ash had captured his Caterpie and Pidgeotto, and during the short time in the forest Caterpie evolved into Metapod, then its final evolution Butterfree. Pidgeotto evolved into Pidgeot here 5 years ago to fight off a Fearow who at the beginning of Ash's journey was a Spearow that Ash attempted to capture but failed to do so. When Ash had returned to Viridian Forest after he had traveled across the Kanto region for the first time, it was shown it evolved, and it had also became the leader of a flock of Spearows who were terrorizing a Pidgey flock in the forest. Pidgeot had stayed here after he evolved from Pidgeotto to protect the Pidgeys from the flock. Ash had promised to return to him after he was done traveling through the Orange Islands, but he hadn't kept his promise. Better late than never, and maybe he could find new Pokémon in the forest. "Ready, Pikachu?" Ash asked, and Pikachu nodded with an eager look on his face. Pika, the Pokémon trainer, and his best friend then ran straight through the entrance and into Viridian Forest, and once inside Ash heard something in the distance and he looked up into a tree and he spotted a wild Kricketot on top of one of the tree's branches. "Whoa, it's a Kricketot," Ash said quietly, and then he pulled out his Pokédex. Kricketot, the cricket Pokémon. When its antennae hit each other, it sounds like the music of a xylophone. "Alright, Pikachu, use thunder on that Kricketot," Ash said, and Pikachu fired a beam of electricity at the cricket Pokémon, who turned around and was hit by the electric type attack and it fainted instantly, and then Ash threw a Pokeball at the cricket Pokémon, which it then absorbed right into itself, and it blinked and wobbled several times and halted, which confirmed its capture, and in a flash of light it was teleported to Professor Oak's lab for storage. Suddenly Ash's Pokegear rings. Suddenly several Spearow surrounded Ash and Pikachu, and what comes down from the sky is the Fearow that lead the flock, whom Ash recognized as the Spearow he attempted to capture the day he started his journey. "Pikachu, this is really bad," Ash said. "Pika, hi." Before Fearow could even attack Ash and Pikachu, a Twister attack appeared and it swirled up all of the Spearow and their leader Fearow and dropped them onto the ground, all of them unconscious. Ash, who saw opportunity in this, pulled out an empty Pokeball from his pocket and threw it on the unconscious Fearow that he attempted to capture on the day he started his adventures 6 years ago. The Pokeball then wobbled and blinked several times and then halted, which confirmed its capture, and it teleported away to Professor Oak's lab for storage. "Yes," Ash said, as he felt great for the capture of that Fearow. Ash then looked up in both surprise and amazement to see his released Pidgeot, who was up in the air waving its wings. At the Team Rocket headquarters, Giovanni, the Team Rocket leader, sits at his desk petting his Persian. Then his secretary comes in and says, "Sir, we have problem." Giovanni then turns to her. "What kind of problem?" Asking. "It involves the agents you sent to Unova, sir. They've been arrested." He slams his hand on the desk, which even frightens his Persian. "How did this happen?" he asks with a stern voice. "Our agents confirm it was because the Pokémon trainer Ash Ketchum." She presents a picture of the young hero that was no doubt taken during his travels in Unova. The Pikachu who they've been after for 6 years is one of his Pokémon. After he defeated them, he called the authorities. After they were arrested, he went into Viridian Forest, she explains to her boss. The Team Rocket leader smiles and says, "Tell Ariana to wait for him in Pewter City." She bows and says, "Right away, sir." The secretary leaves and thinks to himself, she will be more than a match for the boy, knowing Ariana can deal with him better than his other agents can. Back in Viridian Forest, Ash hugs his old friend Pidgeot and says, "I'm sorry I'm late, old buddy, but now I'm here." Pidgeot then responds by yelling, "Pidgeot." Ash then pulls out an empty Pokeball. So now that Fearo's captured the Spearow won't pick on other Pokémon, so you could. Before Ash could finish, Pidgeot taps the Pokeball with its beak and goes inside, which blinks several times confirming the recapture, and teleports off to Professor Oak's lab. "Good to have you back, buddy," Ash says now that he has Pidgeot back after so many years. Ash and Pikachu continue on in the Viridian Forest. Suddenly he spots a shiny Ledian and quickly ducks and pulls out his Pokédex. Ledian, the 5-star Pokémon and the evolved form of Lediba. When the stars flicker in the night sky, it flutters about, scattering a glowing powder. He looks in amazement to see a shiny Pokémon. He has seen several of them over the years. He even has one, his Noctowl. Pikachu use Thunder Wave, he says to Pikachu quietly, who then sends off a charge of electricity at Ledian, which takes it by surprise and paralyzes it and falls down on the ground. Ash then throws a Pokeball at it while it is on the ground paralyzed, and it wobbles and blinks several and then halts, confirming its capture, and teleports away to Professor Oak's lab. That was a stroke of pure luck. Him and Pikachu continue on. Before night falls, they decide to set up camp near a nice spot in the forest. Quilava lights a fire using flamethrower. Then the Pokémon begins eating the berries they found in the forest. Ash then calls Professor Oak on his Pokegear, and Professor Oak, who is the first one to speak, says, "Ash, so far in just one day you have able to capture 4 Pokémon and recovered your Pidgeot." Ash then says, "I know, Professor, not to mention Gibble evolved into Gabite and caught another shiny Pokémon. You're doing great so far, Ash, keep up the good work." The Pokémon professor says, who then hangs up, and Ash looks up at the stars thinking of what is next to come. Ariana. Ash woke up to the sounds of his Pokegear ringing and sees Professor Oak on the screen. "Professor, what is it?" Ash asks. "I just wanted to tell you something. You see, Bulbasaur was fighting off a group of Primeaps who were terrorizing your Eevee and Ledian. He lost control when he suddenly, well, take a look for yourself." He steps aside to show Ash the Bulbasaur he has had for 6 years, who chose not to evolve, is now an Ivysaur with a dishonored face. "Whoa, Ivysaur." He then pulls out his Pokédex. Ivysaur, the seed Pokémon and the evolved form of Bulbasaur. Exposure to sunlight adds to its strength. Sunlight also makes the bud on its back grow larger. He also learned the attack Sleep Powder, which instantly put those Primeaps to sleep, and we were able to move them. Oak says. Ivysaur signs in dishonor in front of his trainer. "It's okay, buddy, there's nothing to be ashamed about." Ash says. But to him there is, he wanted to prove he can be powerful without evolving, but now he can't. Professor Oak adds. Ash smiles. "Now, Ivysaur, you did prove it for a long time." Ivysaur smiles with content, knowing his trainer is happy to him in his evolved form. "I might need some of my water and grass Pokémon for the gym battle against Forest. I might need you, Ivysaur," Ash says to the professor. Ivysaur nods with content. Ivysaur. I'll call you back once I'm at the Pokémon Center in Pewter Professor. Professor Oak hangs on him and he packs his things, then him and his Pikachu continue on and finally exit Viridian Forest and just look in awe at the sight of Pewter City, the site where Ash first met Brock and got his first badge. Okay buddy, let's go. Ash was about to run off to Pewter City when suddenly a female voice said, I wouldn't run so fast. He turns to see a red-haired woman with a white dress with a red R on it. You're from Team Rocket, Pika. That's right, name's Ariana. I'm an executive and our boss is not happy for what you did to those 3 agents. They've been causing me and Pikachu trouble for too long. Maybe but for that we're going to make your life a living hell. She pulls out a Pokeball and throws it in the air. Honchkrow come out. She throws the ball and a Honchkrow comes out and Ash pulls out his Pokédex. Bad choice, Pikachu. Thunderbolt. Pikachu unleashes the attack and Ariana spoke. Honchkrow protect. The big boss Pokemon projects a green force field around it, shielding itself from the Thunderbolt. Use Dark Pulse. Honchkrow unleashes a stream of purple and black lines which collides with Pikachu, knocking him out. Then Ash throws 5 other Pokeballs out, unleashing his other Pokemon. Gabite Draco Meter. Gabite does as Ash says and unleashes a ball of energy that collides with Honchkrow, knocking the big boss Pokemon unconscious. Ariana then withdraws Honchkrow with a smile on her face and pulls out another and says with content, Vileplume come out. Ash then says, Quilava use Flamethrower. The volcano Pokemon unleashes a beam of ultra-hot fire which collides with Vileplume but is not completely defeated. Use Sleep Powder. Vileplume obeys her mistress and unleashes a purple powder which puts all of Ash's Pokemon to sleep except Totodile, who dodged at the last second. Well, looks like you're outmatched. Everyone knows a water type is weak against grass types. Totodile then raises his arms and begins to glow, and Ash and Ariana watches in amazement as Totodile begins to evolve. Then he grows a fin at the top of his head and begins to grow in size. Then process ends and Totodile shows his new form as a Croconaw and yells, Croconaw. And Ash pulls out his Pokédex. Croconaw, the big jaw Pokemon and the evolved form of Totodile. If it loses a fang, a new one grows back in its place. There are always 48 fangs lining its mouth. This still won't save you. Vileplume use Razor Leaf. Vileplume sends off a wave of leaves, but then Croconaw unleashes a white-blue beam, freezing the leaves. Whoa, Ice Beam, Ash says in amazement. After that, Croconaw unleashes another Ice Beam, freezing Vileplume in a block of ice. Ariana with an angry face throws another Pokeball and an Arbok comes out. Use Acid Spray. But before Arbok could, a male voice spoke. Swampert, use Ancient Power. Suddenly a ball of energy hits Arbok, knocking it out, and Ariana withdraws the Pokemon and quickly runs off in defeat. Ash turns around to see the Swampert who saved him, and his owner was none other than his old traveling friend Brock. Good to see you, Ash, Brock said as he ran down the hill to meet his longtime friend with his Swampert following behind him. Whoa, Marshtomp evolved. He pulls out his Pokédex. Swampert, the mudfish Pokemon and the evolved form of Marshtomp. Its arms are as hard as rock. With one swing it can break a boulder into pieces. Yeah, after I came back from Sinnoh and I started training to be a Pokemon doctor and Marshtomp evolved. But enough about me, what have you been doing? Brock asks, curious what his old friend has been doing since Brock went to become a Pokemon doctor. I went to the Unova region and caught a bunch of new Pokemon like Emboar right here. Ash says, and he turns and shows him Emboar, who is currently asleep, along with Gabite, Bayleaf, Quilava and Pikachu from the sleep powder attack from Ariana's Vileplume, and Ash just looks at Brock with an embarrassed look. We better get to a Pokemon Center, Brock says, and then Ash then returned all his Pokemon to their Pokeballs and picked up Pikachu and brings them to the nearest Pokemon Center. Once there, Ash and Brock sit down and talk about their adventures after Sinnoh. So you're retrying the Kanto League? Brock asks after Ash explains what has happened to him so far. Yeah, I want to see if I can win this time with all I've learned over the years, Ash explains. Suddenly a Blissey comes in signaling to Brock and Ash looks in surprise. Is that Chansey? Ash asks. Sure, as she evolved about 5 months ago. Ash immediately pulls out his Pokédex. Blissey, the happiness Pokémon and the evolved form of Chansey. It has a very compassionate heart. If it sees a sick Pokémon, it will nurse the sufferer back to health. Blissey helps me with the Pokémon here at the center and she's telling me there's a patient gotta go. Ash smiles knowing his friend is living his dream and gets up to talk to Professor Oak about his newly evolved Croconaw and Ariana's attack. So then Totodile evolved into Croconaw and learned Ice Beam. Ash tells the Pokémon professor, "That's excellent," Oak says. Officer Jenny then comes in with a file. "Mr. Ketchum, I just got a hit on this Ariana from your description." She puts the file on the table and opens it, showing a mug shot of the woman who attacked her. "She's got a record," Ash says. "Yes, Ariana Netcom was caught attempting to steal a trainer's Squirtle egg in Vermilion City. She's sentenced to 5 years parole 2 years early on good behavior. Parole officer said he hasn't seen her for a year. She was probably doing that for Team Rocket." Ash exclaims, "We didn't even realize there was any connection to Team Rocket until now. I'll look into it." Brock comes out with Blissey and Toxicroak. "Oh officer, is there a problem?" Brock asks. "No, I'm just investigating a crime that occurred. The area doctor," she replies. "Yeah, someone from..." Ash stops and notices Toxicroak. Whoa, Krogunk evolved too. He pulls out his Pokédex. Toxicroak, the toxic mouth Pokémon and the evolved Krogunk. It has a poison sac on its throat. When it croaks, the stored poison is churned for more potency. Yeah, to be honest, the way he was like with Saturn's Toxicroak, I thought he would never want to evolve like Bulbasaur, but I guess I was wrong. Brock says when Officer Jenny exits through the door and turns to Ash and says, "I'll tell you if anything turns. Until then, watch your step." She exits through the door. "Whoa Brock, you didn't flirt with her?" Ash says, amazed. Brock didn't try anything with her. "Yeah, I've learned to control myself mainly because of Toxicroak's claws," he says and turns to Toxicroak, who gives him a very intimidating look while going, "Toxicroak." Also about Bulbasaur, he evolved into Ivysaur by accident when he was defending the Eevee and Ledian I caught yesterday from some primates. Ash explains to his old friend. "That's unexpected," Brock says, remembering Bulbasaur's goal of not evolving. Suddenly a female voice speaks up. "Thanks Brock for healing my Pokémon." Ash hears a voice. "Wait, that voice, it's..." Suddenly Dawn, the girl he traveled through the Sinnoh region with, walks in and looks in amazement and exclaims, "Ash."
Yeah, so guys, how was the first episode? If you like, don't forget to subscribe, turn on the bell icon, and please help me complete 1000 subscribers as soon as possible.